Are you working on fitness goals right now and really struggling to stay focused and stay motivated because you just have so much on your plate? If you are really diligently working towards your goals, but just trying to keep yourself in the zone so that you can get all the way there, this is the perfect podcast episode or video for you if you're with us on YouTube. Welcome to this episode of Conquer the Day. I am your host today, Lindsay Pickowitz. I am going to be interviewing my special guest, my husband, Brian. Say hello.
Hello.
And today we wanted to really give you a raw, honest look at what it takes to get in shape, to lose weight, and to really get the best out of yourself. And when you're on a fitness journey, especially at the beginning, it can be really, really difficult to stay the course, especially if you are the healthiest person you know, healthiest person in your circle. And as we go through that journey, one of the most helpful things when you're in that space and you're trying to keep yourself focused is to really take in others' stories who have been successful. A lot of times we see the end of a fitness journey and we really don't know what it took to get there. We just assume that, we just kept working hard and we stayed consistent. So with Brian, we want to pull apart his story a little bit because before I was even connected to him, he lost 65 pounds. He got in elite shape, and he did it while he was working 60 plus hours, right? Mm-hmm. 60 plus hours and in school full time. And he was absolutely the healthiest person he knew. So we're going to pull it apart and talk about how he stayed focused, how he did it. And I think he's going to be pretty brutally honest with us, right, Bub?
Yeah, my goal is to reverse the clock because I think that at times, one of the things that happens is you get far away enough from your journey that you start talking about where you are versus where you used to be. I know that a lot of people are at the beginning of their journey. They're at the beginning of successful weight loss transformation, or they're looking at where they want to go, and they're not sure what it's going to require of them to get the results. And I think that if you have a brutally honest look at what is required of you, and you also have a little bit of naivety, meaning that you think it's going to be easier than it probably is, those two things combined work really well in your favor, and that's kind of where I was. So I wanted to talk to people who are at the beginning of a successful weight loss journey, who want to get the most out of themselves and are tired of being stuck. Mm-hmm. I think that looking at where I started, the things I had to change about myself, the things I had to change about my circumstances and my environment, I hope this is helpful for people who are in that same space.
Awesome. Okay, so let's start. Let's roll that clock back. Where and when did you actually desire to get in shape? What was the beginning like, and what was that initial motivation?
When I went into college, I had a opportunity to play college football, and I had been a great athlete in high school. I did all three sports. I was captain. I had actually been the player of the year for baseball for the state of New Hampshire. So I had athletics as a background. But the truth is coming from such a small town, when I got to college, I didn't really have any confidence. I didn't have the faith in myself. And I ended up essentially talking myself out of not trying out for the football team. So I had the opportunity to walk on, and there was a surgery I was supposed to have that I didn't really need to have, that I used as a scapegoat for me not trying out. I said, oh, well, I got this surgery, I really can't do it, and I didn't try out. And I remember at the time, I just had such social anxiety that the idea of doing something that outside of my comfort zone coming from a small town, it shook me to my core. And so I didn't try out.
And that was a freshman?
It was a freshman
year?
Yep. But what happened was I sat with that decision, and I thought about where it would take me. So if I was, I would have been 18 at the time, and if I thought, okay, well, where will I be in 25? I played that out, and I was like, I'll be the guy who's at a bar, and I'll be telling people, well, I was a really great athlete in high school, right? And that was what I feared most, because that was the environment that I grew up in, where a lot of people were really great in high school and they never took their life any further than that. It was really this small town mindset. Seeing that, I had this inclination to work my way to the point where I could try out again. I was like, maybe I can give it a shot. Maybe if I work out and I get stronger and I get more muscular and I get bigger, I could give it a shot. So I started working out and I started working out and I started working out. And I remember the first day I went to the gym, I had no understanding of weightlifting. I had no understanding of what to do. And I remember getting so pumped up on, I got to push myself. I dropped the weights on my face in the college gym, and I was so embarrassed that I left. But I made the commitment and I was like, hey, the next day, show up again. And so in that course of that first semester, I probably put on like 10 pounds of muscle.
Was that the intention? So you didn't try out?
I didn't try out. The intention was to maybe give it a shot. So I kind of had the goal, but I really wasn't certain. I really wasn't sure of myself. And then going into the spring semester that year, I was still traveling home to see my girlfriend, hang out with the same group of buddies, drink with the same people. So I'd gone to college, but I didn't really immerse myself. I didn't really make a decision to go to college. I made a decision to get an education.
Got it.
Distinction. I made a decision to get an education. I didn't make a decision to be in college because I kept traveling home every weekend, and we would go and party, and we would drink, and a lot of my friends were, doing drugs, and it wasn't really the best environment. And as I started to push myself more and more in the gym, I started to think, well, maybe this is something I could do. Like maybe this is something I could do. And at the same time, the friend group I was with was very toxic, was very limiting. No one, like I would talk about goals and dreams and people would shout me down and say, well, why would you want to do that? You can never do that. Very negative. And I remember going home, this is before I decided to play college football. And there was an incident with one guy and like 5 of my friends at the time. And they were kind of in this heated exchange. And I stepped in the middle of it and tried to, de-escalate it. And the attention all got placed on me. And I ended up getting jumped by 5 of them. Luckily, nothing bad really happened, although I did have some I got a black eye, I got some bruises and stuff like that. And I remember leaving that being like, I will never hang out with these people again. This is bad for my future. This isn't where I want to go. And I think it was that pivotal point where I said, there's got to be a better way. I reached out to the football coach that had enrolled me. Originally, I said, hey, I would love to try out. I tried out for the football team.
Wait, when was that?
This was my freshman year, my spring season, spring semester. Okay. And I tried out for the football team, and I made it. I wasn't the most knowledgeable, but I hustled, and I knew how to run. I pushed myself, and so it made enough of an impression that brought me back that next year.
I see.
So then from there, I spent the next, almost 2 years trying to build myself up to be a college athlete. And I remember just this mindset because I was playing defensive line and I was, intaking all this like bodybuilding information. You have to put on weight. So I went from about 200 pounds to 250 pounds in about 2 years.
Okay. So basically tracking with you, you kind of dabbled with the idea and the desire to play football. You weren't necessarily like, I am going to play and be the best athlete. Like it wasn't like a clear, like I'm going to write this goal down. It was kind of just in your mind.
It was, I think it was the fear of regret that was motivating me. Like I didn't want to regret the decision to not do it. And I didn't want to be the person who had the opportunity, had the capacity, and didn't take the opportunity.
Got it. So you kind of wrestled with that and therefore started taking action to put yourself in a line where you could. And then that incident happened with all of these people, and that kind of re-anchored like, okay, yes, we need to move forward. We need to do different things from what we're doing right now.
Yeah. And once I tried out, it became something I was really focused on.
Yeah, it was obvious.
I was eating as much as I could. I was trying the best that I could to put on weight. There was no concept of dieting. It was just eat more food, right? There was no, I'm doing this and I'm gaining muscle and I'm being methodical. It was, what does the scale say and can I lift weights? And those 2 things were my data points. I didn't have any knowledge of nutrition. I mean, but other than you take in a protein shake. Ooh, should you not do that because protein's bad for you? I had no concept of nutrition.
I see.
It was just eat more food, whatever you can eat, whatever you can do, get weight, and then continue to push yourself in the gym.
Got it.
And so that kind of morphed.
Started it.
Yeah, that morphed. And then going into the second year I was playing football, or the second semester rather, I was playing football, I needed to pick up another job. So I needed to work while I was going to school.
This was sophomore year.
This has been my sophomore year.
Okay.
I had to work while I was going to school, and I had been working at Under Armour, and I got a job at Vitamin World, a supplement store, and I became the sales rep there. I started to learn more about nutrition. I started to learn more about fitness and dieting, and I had this whole extensive background.
What prompted that decision?
To get the job?
Yeah. At Vitamin World specifically. Like, that's so random.
I think that there was a few things, but it was a simple opportunity because it was right next to Under Armour.
Oh, okay.
So it was right next to Under Armour at the mall that I worked at. And what happened was one of the employers, so the manager at Under Armour, or at Vitamin World rather, had worked with me at Under Armour.
Okay.
And I introduced myself to him. He's like, "Oh, we're hiring." And what was interesting is he said, "Oh, we're hiring." And I was like, "Oh, that's great. I'd love to connect with you. I'd love to get the job." And then when I went to do the interview, he was like, "Oh, it's in Manchester." Right? And Manchester I was coming home every weekend to go to my girlfriend and live with her family. And that job that had Under Armour was there. But I was in Manchester, New Hampshire for college.
Got it.
Which is about an hour drive. And so it just worked out serendipitously that I could work while I was in school. And that kind of had that exchange. So I started working almost working almost 32 hours at the supplement store.
Got it.
And it took over my time at Under Armour. So I started getting more and more immersed. And I started getting more interested in bodybuilding at the time because I saw this benefit of training. I could see my body changing. I could see myself getting stronger. And everything started to kind of morph in one direction. I had read Arnold Schwarzenegger's Total Recall, and that book kind of spelled out his journey of becoming a bodybuilder, moving to California, becoming an actor, and moving and becoming a governor. And I was like, wow, this is really motivating. So I started to kind of veer towards bodybuilding instead of thinking about athletics.
But you were still playing football.
I was still playing football.
Okay. So you started to develop this new goal. In a way.
It started that summer, the summer going into my junior year. There was a few different things. My mom was really sick. My dad was getting sick as well. And this desire to be involved in bodybuilding started to overtake my desire to play college football. And I was training at a powerlifting gym that had pictures of bodybuilders all over the gym. So when I would get out, I would work 8 hours or 10 hours during the summer, helping people with their supplements, and we actually had the best store in all New England. So I was really passionate about helping people and understanding, hey, this is how you change your your diet. Here's how you get great results. Because I was already putting on muscle. I was already healthier than most of the people that were coming in the store, so I could really serve them. And I had a training partner who would go to the gym with me after we worked, and we would push for 2 hours or push for whatever amount of time and work out and train. And so that summer I went from about 220 to almost 240 pounds. So I put on 20 pounds of weight. It's not all muscle, but I put on 20 pounds of weight because I was just whatever I could eat, whatever I could get my hands on. In my mind, if I get to 250 pounds, I'll be so huge, and that would mean I can compete in bodybuilding because that's what I heard Arnold say. So I had no concept of what I was actually doing. I just knew that if I ate more and I went to the gym, I'd get results, and that started to compound from there.
Got it.
So I remember I do remember calling the football coach because I had a decision to make. I could either go and play college football. I wasn't making any money.
Junior year.
Going into my junior year, I could walk onto the football team, and I probably would have had a position because I started to play more towards the end of my sophomore year. So I was like, oh, well, I'll play and I'll be able to do something with football. Or this bodybuilding thing, I'll be able to work full time, and something says that I like it more. Something says it's more something that I can do. So I remember calling him, and he's like, well, you only get the opportunity to play college football once. Are you sure you want to quit? And I sat with it, and I remember thinking that this was the right decision, that I was going to go and I was going to continue to focus on bodybuilding. I was going to continue to focus on building my career while I was going to school and go in that direction more fully.
Interesting. Okay. So as you made that decision, did you tell anybody else?
The hard thing was there wasn't really anyone that would have got it.
It was pretty foreign at that time. It wasn't a super popular thing.
I had one of my friends, one of the kids I played baseball with in high school, his dad was a competitive bodybuilder. And so I had reached out to him and said, hey, I know you did this. Could you give me some advice? And he looked at my program. He got on a phone call with me. And he kind of directed me. He's like, hey, you need to do this. At the time, I was training biceps for like 2 hours. He's like, what the hell are you doing? So I just didn't have any concept of how to actually train. And so he asked me, he's like, do you really want to compete or do you just want to look good? I said, no, I want to go all in. I want this to be the thing that I do. And he kind of gave me direction here, gave me direction there. He would keep checking in with me. He would call me ever so often. So he was kind of that watchful guide. That was the first mentor that I had in the sport, right? I had Arnold's magazines. I had a book. And then he came into my life. His name was Nate. And he helped me, guide me towards that first, we'll say, step towards making it a reality. And obviously he's been a big part of our lives ever since. But that was really the first step is, okay, I really want to do this. I really want to do this. The hard thing, though, was the girl that I was dating at the time, she would shame me if I went to the gym.
Which looked like what? What did that mean?
I was told I wasn't allowed to go to the gym. I was told that I was obsessed with myself. I was, it was just little things, little things. And it was hard. I mean, I understand her perspective now because I was going to college. I was working full time. So my time was so limited that she probably felt like I wasn't giving her enough attention. She wanted more of my time. But there was this thing I was so passionate about. And every time that I would try to focus on it, it became a conflict. I remember one time just not even knowing how to address it. I went to the gym and I ended up getting in trouble with her because I wasn't supposed to be going to the gym at that time and I was supposed to be spending time with her. So it was just really not supportive of that goal. And then everyone else around me saw me as the most fit person already. So I was already ahead of everyone's standard and no one really understood what I wanted to do with bodybuilding. People would be like, oh, you want to stand in underwear on a stage? That's really weird. Why are you taking pictures of yourself in the mirror? Like what? And they didn't really understand what I was trying to do. So it was often thought of with a lot of skepticism. There's a lot of negative feedback. There was a lot of people who tried to dissuade me or tell me that what I was doing was weird or just really belittle the dream or the goal.
Yeah. How did you handle that?
Well, I ended up getting up to 250 pounds in that journey.
Yeah,
right?
Hence like what you said at the beginning. It was 2 years. You put on 50 pounds in that couple years.
And I'd been playing with the idea of doing a contest, but I never really committed to it. So I'd been training. I'd been getting stronger. I'd been building my body. And I remember getting up to 250 pounds. And I was sitting in the parking lot of a Wendy's eating a Baconator and a large fry. And I remember thinking to myself, this isn't really healthy. This isn't really healthy. This isn't really a good standard for myself. I'm just eating whatever I can. So there was no concept of mindfulness, having a positive relationship with food, because all I was trying to do was eat as much as possible. Building off of that, though, when I decided I wanted to compete, I set a small little goal. I looked at some contests and I said, okay, well, there's a contest around June. So going into my 21st birthday, going into that year, so my junior year of college, that spring semester, I said, okay, well, realistically, I could set a goal for like May and June, and I'll be ready to do the contest. So I set myself this goal, and I had no idea what I was doing. I had no concept of what it would require from me. I had no concept of what it would require training-wise, nutrition-wise, time-wise, and I think that was where I was really naive. Right? And I think that's a really good place to be. If you are naive about what's going to require from you, you're more likely to take the leap. Tom Brady talks about this. He's like, the best thing that ever happened to me in my career was I was naive. I was naive enough to think I could be the starter of the Patriots my rookie year. No way. In no way did I have the skill, but I believed in myself.
Mm-hmm.
I thought that I could do it. And so for me, it was the same thing with bodybuilding. I was like, oh, if I lose like 10 pounds, I'll be ready to step on the stage. I had put on almost 50 pounds of body fat. It was nowhere close. Nowhere close. But I remember thinking about it and pursuing it and saying, well, that's a goal. That's something I want to do. I'd put up a vision board in my dorm. I'd put up posters of bodybuilders.
Mm-hmm.
I'd put up posters of Arnold Schwarzenegger. That was something that I used as a way to remind myself visually of what the goal was.
Mm-hmm.
So I think it's so important for people. You have to have a way to condition your subconscious mind or your conscious mind to accomplish your goal. So you got to have a way to see your goal every day. And you have to have a way to set yourself up to constantly be moving towards the target, whether that's with your fitness, your health, whether it's with your business. You have to have some way to measure and track and keep yourself mentally focused on the goal, because there's so many ways that you can get detracted from the goal. There's so many things that can throw you off, especially in a day, right? Your phone is enough of a distraction. It can easily trigger you to think, oh, I'm going to focus on eating cheeseburgers. I'm going to focus on things that do not serve me. Whereas in that moment, I was putting up visual representations of my goals. I was putting up visual representations of how I wanted to look. And that was what I would focus on every day for those, 5 months I was in school.
And I think that more people would do that if they weren't so afraid of what other people thought.
Mm-hmm.
So going back to what you shared around how you were getting skepticism and pushback and feedback, you went and set the goal anyway. You found a goal to set. You talked to somebody who had done it before. But then what type of feedback did you start getting after you were actually committed to your goal and started to just go all in on it? And how'd you handle that?
The first memory I have of people not supporting me was my 21st birthday. I had set the goal to lose the weight to compete in the contest. And it was a goal to roughly lose, let's say 20 to 30 pounds. That's what I thought I would have to lose. And I remember telling everyone, don't throw me a 21st birthday party. I don't want to drink. I'm not drinking. I don't want to eat bad food. This is not what I want. And my brother and my girlfriend at the time threw me a surprise 21st birthday party.
So you still had a lot of the some of these people still in your space.
Yeah, and it wasn't out of spite, but it really angered me. It frustrated me because I had told people this was my goal and this is what I wanted. And there was pizza, there was drinks. And I remember almost feeling disassociated from the experience. Like everyone was there for a party for me, and it was the last place I wanted to be. And I was really upset. I was really bothered. And I was upset because I realized that the environment that I was in would not support the goals that I had. The environment that I was in was very loving, but it wasn't the environment I needed to be in to reach my goal. And for the next 5 months, I didn't come home. I came home maybe once or twice, and when I did, there was little things that would pop up. I remember being so disciplined. I'd probably lost like 15 pounds at this point. And my girlfriend's mom at the time, it was Easter, and she bought everyone Easter baskets, including me. And there was all this chocolate and all this candy, and it was like, this is so in conflict with my goals. And at the time, I didn't have any sense of mindfulness. I didn't have a healthy relationship with food, so I devoured it all. Because
that must have been sad.
The food was there. I had a day where I ate all the food, and now I would look at it and say I had a binge, right? I had a binge episode, and I devoured all this food. I probably gained 3 or 4 pounds. And I was just irritated with myself and irritated with everyone. It wasn't their fault. I took responsibility for my actions. But it was very obvious that the environment that I was in was not facilitating the help that I needed.
Well, there's a really great, I don't remember the quote, so I'm not going to try to actually regurgitate it. But essentially, when you set a goal, you're committing to a new version of yourself. Because there's a new version of you that's required in order to step up and get that goal and bring it to fruition. And it's also a new lifestyle typically attached to a goal as well. You think about a financial goal. You have to change your lifestyle. You have to change your habits in order to save the money to buy the house, or in order to save the money to do X, right? And for you, it sounds like there's this scaffolding of themes so far around these goals that you were setting. You went in and started setting the first goal that would challenge you to play football. You got yourself around at least one person who believed in you, right? The coach, started talking to him. You started changing your environment, but only a little bit. You started going to a gym. You maybe were still kind of going home, and you started to see some conflict there with that initial getting jumped in that first fight and saying, okay, these people, this environment isn't helpful for me. And you got little mentors along the way. So environments, mentors, whether it was Arnold or Nate, these mentors started to drop into your life. The manager at Vitamin World who taught you sales, nutrition, your training partner. Like there was a couple people here and there who really got it. And then there was a series of, you started making decisions. You started, and to decide is to cut off all other options, right? So you started making very strong and clear decisions.
Yeah.
I'm going to chase this goal. I'm not going to go here anymore. And you started to see conflict with old Brian, old lifestyle.
There's a quote that I drew. There's a quote from that season of life that I drew upon often, which is, in order for you to change, a part of your old self must die, and you must be reborn anew, right? And I think that a lot of people don't want to lose who they are for other people, and they're afraid if they lose who they are for other people, they won't become who they could be for themselves. And so when you're changing a part of your life, a part of you probably will have to die and burn off. But you have to see it as you becoming who you're meant to be for yourself. You have to go all in on yourself. And that doesn't mean you have to be rude to people. Doesn't mean you have to be mean or hateful. But it's okay for you to choose yourself. I think that is the hardest thing for so many people to do, because when you stand by yourself, you're truly alone. And that's where a really great guide comes in. So you're talking about the hero's journey. Joseph Campbell talks about the Jungian archetype of the hero and how the hero has the call to adventure, and they answer that call, and then that pushes them across the threshold. And then while they're going through that threshold, they meet a guide and they meet a mentor. And then that mentor shows them some things. And then as they start to embark on the adventure, they usually enter the abyss. And the abyss is where they're not sure if they're actually going to achieve the goal. They're not sure if they're going to actually achieve the goal. And they keep pushing through, and they have this metamorphosis, right? And they change and they transform, and then they're reborn anew. And then they continue on the paths until they achieve the goal, and they achieve what he says, the boon, the gold, and they return that back home. And for me, there were several moments where the people around me did not get what I was starting to experience. And I started to experience also around this time because I was setting goals and I was starting to achieve them. I had lost 20 pounds. I had started to see
significant.
I had started to see some changes. I had a guide in my life who was the manager of the supplement store, who was a fitness competitor and a physique athlete. And he started to become my training partner. And he had the greatest physique I'd ever seen. It was unreal. I didn't believe that humans could actually look like that. And he started to train me, and he started to teach me things. So I started to level up in a totally profound way. I started reading personal development books. I started reading entrepreneurial books like The 4-Hour Workweek. And I thought, wow, I don't want to work in a job. I want to start a business. While I was in college, I was working 60 hours. So I got a really good taste of what it looked like to be an employee. I was like, I want to be an entrepreneur. I want to create something. I had this vision. And so I started to have all this energy and all this excitement and all this passion. And I would go and talk to people who were still unconscious, and they would look at me weird. And they would make fun of me, and they would call me names. I started to have this desire to meditate because I had heard someone say, well, meditation's really helpful. So I was like, oh, I'm going to meditate. And the girl I was dating at the time said, what the hell is wrong with you? You're trying to meditate? That's so weird. Because this is 2015, right? It's almost 10 years ago. People didn't do that stuff. It wasn't popular. We didn't have social media really to expand these ideas. So I was going through this conscious transformation, And I was really starting to become aware that I could have anything that I wanted in my life. I could achieve things.
Mm-hmm.
I started to read personal development books like Awaken the Giant Within. Like I said, the 4-Hour Work Week changed my life. And I would go back to these environments and people wouldn't get it. They wouldn't understand. And it really made me doubt myself.
I was going to ask how it impacted you.
It made me doubt myself. And I think I became, I don't like to, I never really use hate as a fuel. So a lot of people would say, oh, I'm going to prove you wrong. I'm going to show you.
No.
That was never really my motivation. But I did start to act out towards people. I did start to retaliate. I think that anyone that wasn't in my circle that was going to support me, I started to say, well, they're just a loser. And they didn't want what I wanted. So I would become more aggressive. If you didn't support me, you were against me. I had to almost build up this psychological container to protect myself so that I could get what I wanted. In hindsight, that was probably really challenging for a lot of people in my life to deal with. But I think more than anything, I isolated myself. I isolated myself. I would work, and then I would focus on my goal, and I would go to classes. I would try to go out once in a while, but I became so focused. And I think a lot of it was also, there was a lot of trauma happening in other areas of my life. My dad was sick. My mom was sick. They were broke. They didn't have any money. And so the people that I was around, they didn't see that pain. They didn't understand how much pain I was in because I was watching that happen. And no one really saw that. They just saw, oh, this is a guy who's bodybuilding. It's like, no, I was working my way through college, 60 hours a week, working 3 jobs. I was going to school full time and failing some classes because I just couldn't figure it out. And at the same time, I had this turmoil in my personal life with the people who were my friends or my close family that just didn't get it. And so it was really hard. So I would isolate myself, or the way that I put it is the value of training is that you get a moment to yourself. So when all these things were going wrong, when all these things were in a really challenging place, I had 60 minutes to work on myself. And I think that's why I became so passionate about fitness, because for 60 minutes, I could put on headphones and I would listen to Les Brown. I would listen to Eric Thomas. I would listen to Arnold Schwarzenegger, and I would train. And it was like I was training my physical body, but I was training my subconscious mind. I was training myself to focus on what I wanted. I was training myself to change my physiology and also change my mindset. I was changing the thought patterns that were reinforcing me throughout the rest of the day. And so you have to see, if you're just going to the gym and you're just going to the gym for the sake of it, it's not going to be as powerful as if you're going to the gym and you're listening to something that's going to inspire you the rest of the day. You should be training your mind as much as you're training your body. It has to be connected. And if it's not connected, you probably won't transform your life. If you're not where you want to be, the easiest way for you to start changing is to get physical. Because once you're physical, you have energy, you have momentum, you have this sense of confidence that pours out of you. And if you can combine that with something that is also changing your thoughts, changing your mind, that's how you transform forever. I wouldn't have lost the weight and won the contest, which is what I did. I went on to start doing fitness modeling. I launched my first company, and it was my first personal training business. I had over 8 clients book me out for the summer, and I'm not saying they bought some sessions. They literally booked out my whole calendar for the remainder of the summer, which is like 12 weeks. As soon as I launched, I was training people. I was getting ready for this contest. I was doing all these things that were the result of 6 months or 8 months of really intentional work on my mind and my body. And it totally became this different thing than I'd ever expected. And that wouldn't have happened had I not changed the way I was thinking. It was more than just the physical transformation. It was a mental transformation.
Yeah, I think that's very powerful. It's an immersion, essentially. You can even imagine it. It's like you created your own environment by listening to things, by putting your physical body into a gym, by removing yourself from alternate voices that would cause that doubt to come up in you. My question would be, Knowing what you know now, how would you have handled that if you knew what you know now then? How would you handle, and maybe instead of isolating yourself, would you have sought out alternate communities? How would you have tried to build relationships? Would you try to go to events? Like, was there things that you would have done, or even communicated more lovingly and just and cut people out like, is there other things that you would have done?
I wouldn't have done anything differently. And I think when you're on the other side of something that's successful, you don't go back and change it. The things that I would have changed is I would have built more awareness around my relationship with food. I would have built more awareness around being flexible with my nutrition, being flexible with my diet. I think that was the hardest thing that happened afterwards.
Which we can get to.
But I might have cut people out sooner.
Yeah.
I would have cut people out.
Because there was a couple years of that story that were very muddy. Like, oh, I still hung out with, I still did this, I still did that.
I guess you're right. I would have chosen myself faster. I would have accepted the pain of telling people that
I'm not going to do these things anymore.
I'm not the right person for you. I don't belong in your life. I would have been okay with telling people no. I think that's still something that I have to work on.
Yeah.
Is the part of me that really desires to be loved, that desires for people to want to be in proximity to me and not wanting to let people down. But had I not stayed in that safe, comfortable relationship, or had I not been in those safe, comfortable, relationships, meaning like around friends or around, people who were second or tertiary family members, I don't know if I would have gotten to where I was. So it is what it is. But I think the biggest thing is recognizing when someone is holding you back, and you have to have that conversation with that person. I tell people, have the conversation with the person that's holding you back, especially if that person's yourself. So for me, it was all internal. It was all the beliefs that I had about who I had to be for these people. The beliefs I held about who I had to be for them and what their expectations of me. And I started to rid myself of those. And as soon as I did, everything exploded.
Honestly, it sounds like the entire 2.5 years was one big mental game.
Yeah.
More than anything else.
And I think that's the key is if you're struggling with motivation, it's not because you don't know how to work out. It's not because you don't know how to eat. It's because you do not control your thoughts. You do not control your emotions. You do not have the focus on your goal. You don't have enough direction
or fuel.
Well, it's you don't have a clear enough purpose. You don't have motivation because you don't know why you're doing it. And you have to condition the belief and the focus daily. You have to remind yourself of why you're doing what you're doing, of where you're going. You cannot cheat yourself in thinking that writing something down once is enough. You have to revisit it daily.
Yep.
It has to be something that you are fully immersed in. And it has to be connected to something greater than yourself. You have to see it as something greater than where you are right now. If you think about that journey, I wanted to lose weight because I wanted to compete in bodybuilding. I wanted to compete in bodybuilding because I wanted to move to Los Angeles. That's what happened is I saw I'm going to be in bodybuilding. Yeah, I was in a small town in New Hampshire, but I'm going to compete in bodybuilding, and then I'm going to move to Los Angeles, and I'm going to become an online fitness coach. I'm going to become a professional bodybuilder. There were layers to that. And quite frankly, I accomplished everything in that tier of that vision. Did everything. I accomplished every single part. I was like, I want to be successful in this business. I want to bring it online. I want to be competing in bodybuilding. I want to move to Los Angeles and compete in bodybuilding. And when we did, we were successful in that endeavor. Life took us in a different direction, but everything that we set out and we envisioned, we accomplished. And there was a clear purpose behind that single contest. Then it'll be nice to do it. It'll be nice to lose some weight.
So, why did you set the goal to go on stage? What about that was compelling for you, and did the experience hold up to your expectations? That first one.
Leading up to the contest, I had the experience of thinking I would lose I was like, oh, I'll lose 15 pounds and that'll be enough.
Yeah.
And it was nowhere close to enough. So I had to keep pushing the goal. And it was great because I think that this is a teachable moment. Sometimes you think your goal will take you 2 months. And a lot of people get defeated when they think, oh, this is going to take me 2 months to lose all the weight. And they lose 30% of the weight, and it's going to take them longer, but they get frustrated. Like, oh my gosh, like I only lost 15 pounds in 2 months. It's like, well, maybe you had an unrealistic expectation. Maybe you thought wrong. Or maybe you didn't do enough. Yeah, you can lose that much weight in that much time, but maybe you didn't do enough. Or maybe you can't do that. Maybe your life doesn't require or allow that to happen. And I think it's really important that just because you didn't hit your goal in your time does not mean you can't hit the goal. It's more important that you ask the question, what is the goal versus when do I need to hit it by? You need to constantly be asking, what's the goal? What's the goal? What's the goal? For me, I wanted to win a bodybuilding competition. I wanted to be world class in my physique. I wanted to build my online coaching business. Okay. When I looked at my body around June, I had lost 50 pounds, maybe 45. And I looked fantastic. I looked so fantastic, I went and did a modeling shoot. And that modeling shoot was the first introduction to me being in the fitness space. I couldn't believe it. I was so proud of my body. Now, what's fascinating about that is people then took those modeling photos and made memes of me. And that was an interesting experience. So a lot of people, they don't change because they're worried about what people will think.
And sometimes people think some gnarly things.
People took my modeling photos, and this is 2015. They made memes about me being gay. They're like, oh, you're in the closet and you're gay and all this stuff. And they put it on the internet. And I was like, whoa. This blew me away. And these were people who were supposed to be my friends. So all those people that I left. So when you start moving against the waves and you start having a conscious awakening and you start elevating, people want to keep you down. And I remember seeing those and just being baffled.
You were baffled.
I
remember that.
What the hell? Like I couldn't believe that someone would be so mean. Now, luckily, there's nothing wrong if I had been gay, but I wasn't. But it still, so it made me feel a little insecure. Like, I don't want to be misrepresented as someone who I'm not, right? And I remember taking the memes, though, and posting them myself and making a point, like, how do you know that there's not something that I'm keeping from people, and that's why people hurt themselves? It's like, if I was actually in the closet and you posted that, how do you know that I wouldn't go kill myself? Like, how do you know that public ridicule wouldn't do me wrong? Did you ever think of that? And I thought it was a really great point.
It was a great point.
And being a good business person, I was smart enough to do it. And then the next day launched my business because everyone on social media was talking about, oh my gosh, this is such a great idea that you'd put these people on blast and you owned it and you were comfortable in yourself. And the next day I said, oh, I'm accepting clients. So it was a fantastic gift from these people. But that was a really great moment and a teaching lesson that the people who you start separating yourself from are not going to support you, and you shouldn't expect them to. And if they start to hate on you and they start to give you anything but love, it's because they do not love themselves. So the people who are going to hate you for changing are the people who hate themselves because they don't believe they can change.
Yep.
And you need to recognize that, and you have to listen to it, because people will give you subtle jabs. They'll say subtle things, and you have to learn to correct them or remove them. When someone
talk about that.
This is more something I've learned recently, but when we came back to New Hampshire, there were people in my life who I loved dearly who spoke limitations over things. I have grown so much in 10 years in my beliefs, in my wealth, in my level of success, and what I expect from myself. And it's different than maybe where someone was when I left. And so certain people in my life will speak limitations over me or speak to me in a certain tone, and I've had to teach them how to talk to me.
And how do you do that?
I'm direct and loving, and I say, that doesn't work for me. I understand that you just said that. I understand that this is what you're thinking. I just want to let you know that I don't accept that kind of behavior. I don't let people talk to me that way. It's not going to work for me. And I don't do it I don't attack but you have to train people how to talk to you. You have to train people how to speak to you. You have to train people how to respect you, especially if you are changing. So coming back though, I go through that whole experience. I start modeling, I start training, and I had to reset my goals. And as I started to get to like 6 weeks out, things got really exciting. I remember every day I was just taking photos of myself and just being blown away by what I looked like. And I think that's the most valuable thing. Doesn't matter if you're going to compete in bodybuilding or not, but take photos. Compare your photos of yourself. You have to track and measure, right? I would track and measure every workout. I would track and measure everything I was eating. I would track and measure my photos. I would track and measure my weight. And the best thing is when you do that and you work hard, you get the result. Yeah. A lot of people don't want to track and measure because they don't want to fail. And it's like, yeah, well, the only way you're going to fail is if you track and measure and don't change your behavior.
Bingo.
Like if you're tracking and measuring your finances and you don't have more money at the end of the month because you did that, it's because you didn't change the behavior. If you track your calories and do not lose weight, unless there's some underlying health condition, it's because you didn't change what you were eating or you weren't honest. You were overeating and you said, well, I tracked my food, but you didn't really track your food. You just put it in an app. So you have to see that tracking and measuring is a way for you to be accountable and make sure that you hit your target. And if you do that, it should correlate with you changing your behaviors. And changing your behaviors often means that you're going to work harder. Yep. You're going to work on the right things. Like if you're working out and dieting and not losing weight, it's because you're working on the wrong things. You're focusing on the wrong things. You aren't doing the right things. And that's okay because you have the habits built, but that's where you have to start to assess and change. So I did it all. The 4 weeks, the 6 weeks up to the contest, photos, videos. I did a photo shoot right before. It was the most fun I ever had because I was so close. And I got harder and harder as I got closer. That's why I say I would have learned more about my relationship with food because I didn't have a plan afterwards, which is why it's so important that if you are reaching your goal, you should you need to set another goal or at least have a plan for afterwards. Yeah. And this is where other people's beliefs are so dangerous because I had all these people around me saying, oh my gosh, you've worked so hard. You can go and enjoy yourself now. You can relax. And
well, good. Well, take us to the contest first. Don't jump too far because we'll talk about after.
Yeah, but I do wish that I would have had a little bit more intention there, but I'll come back.
Fair.
So I go into the contest though, the 3 weeks, the 4 weeks, the peak week. It was so exciting. And the best part of the contest was showing up and knowing that I looked better than most people. There were some guys who were like, because there's different brackets. So I was in the novice and the beginners, and then there was the open, which is where you're competing for pro. And the pro guys were a little bit better. I think I got like third place. I got third place. I got first place. I got first place. So the point is, I remember walking in and being like, oh yeah, I'm going to do great. And just having so much like confidence. Like confidence. Like I looked at the guy. Bodybuilding is very macho. So I remember looking at the guys who were going to be competing against me in one of them, and I was like, oh, yes, I'm going to beat them. It was the best feeling. And that's how you should feel because you've worked so hard. You've worked so hard. You've done it all. You've put in the effort. You've put in the sacrifice. Yep. So, yeah, I remember just thinking like, oh, yes, I'm going to do this. Yeah. And, my mom, bless her heart, I didn't have anyone to help me out. So my mom was my stage coach. So like you in bodybuilding, you have someone who comes back with you, helps you pump up, that holds like maybe your weights or helps put oil on you because you need to have like a sheen. So my mom, bless her heart, I was like, Mom, I need some help. And she helped me out because my mom is the best.
Your Speedo and all.
Yep. She came and she, helped me get all set for the stage and, we won. But I remember the actual, the posing routine, just the energy that I gave to the crowd and the crowd gave to me. The cheering, I hit a couple poses that no one usually hits. And just everyone went crazy. It was a full auditorium and it was just a wonderful, wonderful moment.
So did it meet or exceed your expectations?
I think the best part, the contest did, but it wasn't the contest.
What was it?
The best part was the doing. I think that's what most people don't understand. The best part was the time that led up to the contest. the workouts. The workouts, the reps, the pushing my body, the seeing how hard I could be disciplined when my brain was telling me to go and eat food. Yeah. The funnest part was the period between 6 to 2 weeks out or 1 week out, because that's when I actually won the contest.
Those final moments when it got the hardest.
I think a lot of people focus on the outcome. They think, oh, it'll be so nice when I accomplish a thing, or I want to accomplish that thing, but they don't want to do the work that gets you to accomplish the thing. The work is what you have to focus on. Everyone wants to be a billionaire, but no one wants to do the work that's required to become a billionaire. I know a billionaire, friends with him. And you know what? I know a good amount about what was required for him to accomplish that. And most people would not want that life. They would not want that stress. They couldn't handle a quarter of it. So it's great to have aspirations, but you have to be willing to do the work. And so the most fun I had during that contest prep was not the stepping on the stage. It was the work in between. It was the effort. It was the sacrifice.
Yeah.
That was what made it all worth it.
What value did you attach to the work to make you want to do it? Because I think a lot of people would hear that and be like, yeah, I wish I wanted to do the work.
There's a great quote from Alex Hormozy that reads, "The work that you work on works on you more than you work on it." I believed that it was making me stronger. I believed that it was making me a better businessman. I believed it was going to help me become wealthy. I believed it was going to help me help more people. I believed that it was going to make me have more skills and a greater capacity to impact people's lives. That's what made it all worth it. That every rep that I did, every set that I did, every weight that I lifted was getting me one step closer to who I wanted to be. So I think that's the actual principle is, who do you want to be? There's a Arnold Schwarzenegger video that I listened to when I was 18, and I found it and I put it on my iPod, and the principle was, who do you want to be? Not what, but who. Not what, but who. Not the thing that you think you're going to do, but who do you want to become? And that is the foundation of all psychology. Personal growth and, let's say, humanistic psychology, which is you becoming your fullest, greatest potential, is a change of your core. It is a change of your being. It is not doing. It is who you become. At the end of the journey, you will lose everything. The only thing that will be left is who you became. That's the most important thing.
That's excellent. Very good advice, even if it's indirect advice. So I would end with a question. For those who are listening, who are with you, who are right at that point of, it's really hard now. I've been doing this for a little bit. Man, a lot of me wants to quit. Or I've had a few setbacks and man, I don't know if I can get back up. What is your key message for them that you want them to take away and take into their fitness journey specifically?
So I'll share this. This would be a good tie down. After the contest, I had no plan. I had everyone tell me that I can eat whatever I want and I deserve to eat whatever I want. And over the next month, I put on 15 to 20 pounds of body fat. And I destroyed my body. And I remember my dad being like, "You're destroying all your hard work." But I did not have the relationship with food or the awareness to stop. It wasn't. I didn't have a binge eating disorder, but it was pretty darn close. I just could not stop myself from eating. And that was really hard because everyone saw this great physique that no longer was, that I had to go and deal with. And then I went back to college, where all these people had seen me marketing and posting on social media, but they didn't see me in person. So it was like they expected me to look a certain way, and I didn't look that way. And that was really challenging.
You'd feel mentally. Like a fraud.
I felt like a fraud. I felt more anxious because there was an expectation of what I was supposed to look like. And now it's unrealistic that you would look that way all the time anyways.
Yeah.
But no one understands that.
Totally.
And so people would like come up to me and like try to pull up my shirt.
Oh my goodness.
And stuff like that. Like
That must have been so anxiety provoking. Oh my gosh.
So I share that because it was probably like another 2 months after that. I was like, oh my God, like my weight, I stopped gaining weight, but I had this story that I had to get back. And I would try so hard to like pump myself up and push myself. And I would almost, you would call it all or nothing now. I would say, okay, I got to get back in shape. I got to drop 20 pounds today.
Yeah, I remember those
And
instances.
I would, try to do all the cardio. I'd try to weight lift. I was still weightlifting, but I just didn't have the same energy. I just done, a year of weight loss. I didn't have the same energy and the same drive and the same push. And I couldn't maintain the diet.
Yeah.
And that's okay because my body was telling me something.
Yep.
My body was telling me like, hey, it's okay. You need to put on some body fat. It's time for you to get out of this mode. And my brain was really protecting me. It's keeping me out of survival mode because that's what happens when your body is that lean. But I didn't know. I didn't know how to handle it mentally. And so I would keep trying and I couldn't be consistent. I would fall off the wagon, as you would say. So what I did was I decided to stop trying. And I started from where I was. Like I stopped trying to go back. I stopped trying to course correct to get back to somewhere. And I said, I am going to stop and take pause.
Surrender a little bit.
And I'm going to start from this point forward. So I had to kind of let myself fail for a moment and accept defeat. Like, okay, I failed at this. I have not reached the goal and what I'm doing is not working. And then I decided to start from where I was. Mm-hmm. So I said, instead of trying to get to 1,800 calories or 1,600 calories, why don't we go to 26? Why don't we maintain here? Why don't you work out 5 days a week or 4 days a week? Focus on controlling this and just relax a little bit.
Mm-hmm.
Go to a maintenance. Just maintain for a little bit.
Yeah.
And I did about 4 weeks of maintaining. And what I realized was, I can handle this again. And then I went to 2,200 calories and I got back to a physique that made me feel like I could post a photo with my shirt off and felt good. And that took about 8 more weeks, right? But I was able to course correct because I stopped punishing myself. I stopped beating myself up. I hit pause. So if you're in that position where you keep trying, and things aren't working, accept where you are, hit pause, and then work on maintaining. And then once you've maintained, then push towards the next goal. But you have to meet yourself where you are. And after that, I was able to enjoy myself. My business kept going. I went to the next year. I came and saw you in Australia for a little bit. And then I stopped in Los Angeles. I said, this is where I'm going to live. Did my next contest. After that contest, I launched the online business. And then within 8 months, we were in LA living our dream. So it all worked out. Like, it still got me to the goal. I just had to hit pause for a moment. I think that's where you should start.
It's great feedback. I love it. Good stuff. With that, you want to close here? I think this is a good place to end.
It's a great job. You did a great job interviewing me.
Thank you. I tried. And I hope that this is helpful for you who are out there listening to this. I know that it can be really, really trying to not only start, because starting is very difficult, especially getting yourself in that mode. You even heard through Brian's story, it can take a little bit of time of dabbling and wondering if this is really what you want to actually solidify it. But once you do that, then it's going to be difficult because you're going to change your environment. You're going to need to find mentors. You're going to need to get a new community around you. And you're going to need to learn a lot. You're going to need to fail a lot because that's the only way that you actually start to let go of the things that have held you back in the past. Is you have to wrestle with those failures and then find new behavior out of them. That said, thank you for listening to Brian's story. Soon we'll probably be sharing mine. And go out and conquer your day.
Cheers.